Hey guys, welcome to my first YouTube video. I'm so excited that you're here and I'm so excited to be doing this. I thought that the best way to kick off my YouTube journey is to go over my favorite books of 2024. In total, I read 159 books in 2024, and that's just too many books for me to go through, and especially because I want to talk about all of them, talk about what the ratings I gave them. So 159 is not like too much. So I'm just gonna go over my favorite books of 2024. To start off strong, one of my favorite books and book series of 2024 was obviously the ACOTAR series. Everyone was raving about it in 2024, and my friend, shout out, you know who you are, she was trying to get me onto these books for the longest time, and I finally got around to reading them and I absolutely fell in love. So thank you so much. You know who you are. I did not regret reading these. It was just amazing. Just doing a quick recap of these books. Obviously the first one was terrific. It took me a little bit to get into it just because I'm not a huge fantasy person, and I feel like in most fantasy books you do have to kind of set the stage and kind of introduce all the characters, so that took a little bit and was a little slow, but once it got started it was really good. Second book of the series I gave a 5 out of 5, and this was my first 5 out of 5 of the year, and if you know the second book, you know what I'm talking about and how amazing it was, and it was just fantastic. The third book, I also believe I gave it a 5 out of 5, and again, it was just amazing. And once you kind of get into the series, the plot starts to thicken and the characters are being more developed and introducing different main characters. In the first two books, you obviously follow the two main characters, Rhysand and Feyre, and then in the third one and the last one, you kind of get different perspectives from the other main characters, which I think is kind of cool, but you also still follow kind of their story. But yeah, overall in general, this was probably one of my top favorite books of the year. So if you want me to go more in depth of what I thought about these books, just leave a comment and I will do a separate video on just the ACOTAR series. The next book series that was one of my favorites of 2024 was the King of Wrath series by Anna Huang. I did read her Twisted series in 2023 and I loved them, so of course I had to read this one. So the first book I gave a 4 out of 5. It was really good, a really good introduction to the new cast and new main characters that she has in the series. The second book I also gave a 4 out of 5. Again, just really good. The third book, also a 4 out of 5. The fourth book I gave a 5 out of 5, and I believe this was the third book of the year that I gave a 5 out of 5. So the first two 5 out of 5s were from ACOTAR, and then this was the third book. And she's coming out with the next one, book 5, King of Envy, and I'm so excited for that one. So you have to stay tuned for that video because I'm gonna hopefully do a reaction on that one. The next book that I really loved from 2024 was This Summer Will Be Different by Carly Fortune, and I have read some of her other books and they're really good, and this one was new over the summer, like late spring, summer I believe, and I just loved it. I gave it a 4 out of 5. This book is about a girl who visits and vacations this island in the PEI, and she meets this guy named Felix, which I think is actually a really cute name, but every time she goes there, she ends up hanging out with Felix. They start to become friends, sometimes more, and it's not until later that she realizes that Felix is her best friend's younger brother, and it never occurred to them that, you know, where she was staying or how she kind of knew things about the PEI. It wasn't until then that they realized, oh, yeah, you're my best friend's younger brother. But anyway, so that kind of follows each year about their visits and every time they kind of meet up and just the development of their love story, and I think it's really well written. And when I finished it, I immediately texted my best friend and I was like, you need to read this book. It is amazing. So that one was a great summer read, and it put me in a really good mood, and it wasn't like overly romantic. It still had a plot, and it still kept me intrigued and wanting to like see how their story ended up. Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez was another one of my favorite books of 2024. Again, it was a summer read. So the plot of this book is about Justin and Emma, and they separately have had bad luck with love. And basically everyone they've dated in the past and broken up with, their ex-partners have gone on to find the love of their lives like right after they dated them. This news kind of went viral, and then they made like a pact and like agreement, like we'll date each other, and when we break up, we'll find the love of our lives. Well, things happened, and as they started to like fake date and be together, they realized that they were starting to develop actual feelings for each other. And when some trouble came for Justin, he had to take guardianship of his 3 younger siblings, and she was there to help him. And things just kind of ended up evolving into more than just fake dating and trying to find someone later on after they broke up. And yeah, so in the end they ended up together, and it was just a great book. So I totally recommend that one as well. One of my favorite authors that I read in 2023 carried over to 2024, and that author is Mia Sheridan. So all of the books I read from Mia Sheridan this year were my favorites. I'll go through them really quick. So the first book that I read by Mia Sheridan was Travis, and this one I rated a 5 out of 5. This kind of story follows from Archer's Voice, which is one of the first of like a series. It is about this like figure in this community who is just trying to find his love, and everyone else around him is finding the love of their lives, and he's just trying to get a chance and trying to start not anew, but trying to start his own family. And he has pressures of being the chief of police, so he's kind of trying to navigate that. And when this girl comes in, she kind of stirs up something in him and kind of forces him to look at life a little bit differently, which is good for him because he's always been so serious and focused on the job. But overall, it's a really good book, and there's a reason I gave it a 5 out of 5, so you should definitely read it. The next book that I read by Mia Sheridan that I absolutely loved was called Grayson's Vow, and this one I rated a 4 out of 5. It was really good, and I try not to compare books that are by the same author to each other. It's kind of hard, but it still was really good. So this one is about this girl who is about to lose her inheritance from her grandmother, and she needs to get married in order to gain access to it. And a guy who is an ex-criminal, and he's trying to keep up this vineyard because of this legacy, and he wants to uphold it, and he needs money though to do that. And so they end up finding each other and getting married, but for the money and stuff. And then they end up kind of falling in love and spending more time together, and kind of realizing that things between them aren't just for the money, but beyond that, for their feelings. So the next book I read by Mia Sheridan was called Becoming Calder. I think that's how you say his name, Calder. And this one I rated a 4 out of 5. This book was the first book of a duology, so there's another book in the series, and it's called Finding Eden, which is just another main character. I can't spoil too many things, but this first book is kind of like forbidden romance, and I just absolutely loved it. And then the next book, like I mentioned before, is called Finding Eden, and this book I rated also a 4 out of 5. Okay, moving on from Mia Sheridan, the next books that I thought were really good of 2024 were by the author B.K. Borison and the series Love Light Farms. And it was very like thematic toward Christmas and like the holidays, but I think I read it in the summer or late summer, so it was kind of like weird. But overall, it was a really cute story, and it's a series, so it follows along the different main characters. And the first book was really good, really good. This first book was about like friends to lovers, and I'm always a sucker for friends to lovers trope. And the second book's kind of like an unexpected romance between the two main characters. The female, she realizes that what she's doing job-wise isn't what she envisioned to do for the rest of her life, and kind of like how it ended up being, if that makes sense. Like, she kind of envisioned her career being more helpful towards people. I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain, but it was a really good book. And I rated the first book and this book a 4 out of 5. I also rated the third book and the fourth book a 4 out of 5, actually. And they were all really good books. And again, they all follow different main characters. Oh my gosh, Finnegan, stop it. My cat is playing with my book pages, so that's pretty fun. The next book series that I absolutely loved in 2024 was also recommended by the same friend who recommended ACOTAR, and it was the Flawless series by Elsie Silver. So it was Flawless, Heartless, Powerless, and Hopeless. Just amazing. If you want a good like country romance, some like rodeo vibes, that is your series. And each book has a different trope, and that definitely kind of adds to the appeal of wanting to read more. And obviously in each book, they kind of introduce the next main characters of the next book. And so that's what I really love about some of these series, is that the authors do a really good job of like keeping the main characters relevant throughout the rest of the book series. So you kind of still get sneak peeks into the lives of the main characters you read the book before, if that makes sense. So yeah, that series was amazing. The first one was kind of like an enemies to lovers, forbidden romance-ish type. The second one was single dad, nanny vibes. The third one was kind of like a friends to lovers, childhood, best friends to lovers, kind of just like a slow burn, which was really good. I think that one like was one of my favorites out of the series. I know it's not everyone's cup of joe, but it was really good. And then the fourth book of the series was a surprise pregnancy and kind of like a one-night stand, and that one was really good as well. So I totally recommend the Powerless series by Elsie Silver, and I plan on reading the rest of her other popular series in 2025. The next Muse Sheridan book that I read was called Falling for Gage, and this one I rated a 4 out of 5. And again, really good plot, really good character development, and really good just storyline and romance between the characters. It's about this, main character, male main character, who's trying to like find his love. Obviously, again, he's seeing everyone in this town find their loves, and a one-night stand eventually leads to someone who is now in his life, and as they spend more time together, they fall in love. So I think any Mia Sheridan book is worth a read for sure. The next book series, first two books that I absolutely loved was Binding 13 by Chloe Walsh. And I had seen this book a lot on Book Talk, and I was like, you know what, like the general idea that these people are talking about has me hooked. And so I read it. I gave the first book of the series a solid 5 out of 5. It seemed like the book was extremely long. I read this on my Kindle, so like I didn't have a physical copy, but it seemed like the book would not end in the best way possible. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm only like a quarter of the way through, but so much has happened already. And it was just, there are some trigger warnings in this book because of just some things in the female lead's past and present, I guess, that can be kind of upsetting. So definitely check out the trigger warnings for any of these books, if there are any, before you read them. The storyline of this book is about how the female lead comes from kind of like an abusive household, and she's trying to make her way in this new school that's hopefully going to help her avoid bullying and stuff like that from her peers. and as she starts her journey, I guess, in this new school, she ends up running into and meeting and falling for their star player of the rugby team, who has aspirations for the pros and has done a lot of things and has a lot of things for him in the future. And it's kind of like, I don't know, a really good storyline of them kind of, again, finding their own way, how she learns to stand up for herself against her kind of like abusive father, and then how he realizes that rugby isn't everything and that, you know, settling down with one girl might be worth it. This one I gave a 5 out of 5 again. I don't know if I mentioned that before. And then the second book to that series was called Keeping 13. So it's kind of just talking about their relationship after like a cliffhanger at the end of the first book, and kind of just them keeping the relationship the way it is after things that happened in the first book and then the cliffhanger at the end of the first book. So that was pretty good. There are a few other books in the series, and I read like the last 2. There's 2 in the middle and then 2 at the end. I think I read the last 2, and those were really good. Those were about like their best friends in the books, but I didn't read the middle 2 just because I wasn't as interested in those characters as I wanted to be. So I know that's probably like not good, but I just didn't really. So I skipped those 2 and just went to the end. There's a bunch of books scattered between all of the books that I've read, but a lot of my other favorite books are sports romance books. So if you follow my Goodreads, which is linked below, and I don't know if you can see other people's 2024 wrapped, but if you can see it or see the books that I have read in the past, and you see any of the sports romance books, 98% of those books I also loved for 2024, but there's just so many like single books, standalones, or like small series that it's just too much to go through, but those are the ones that I also loved. So, and an honorable mention for this video is Funny Story by Emily Henry. So this book was highly anticipated, and if you know, you know. I've read all her other books and they were amazing, and this one, I don't know how I felt about it. I gave it 4 out of 5. Some of her other books I've given 4 out of 5s and 5 out of 5s. This one I think could have been a little bit better, but it definitely did live up to the hype and was really good. So it wasn't one of my favorites of 2024, but it's still a really good book, so I definitely would recommend that one. The next book that I loved in 2024 was also part of a series, but the first book, top tier compared to the rest of them. This series, I guess like the first book is called This Is Falling, and it's similar to Binding 13 on how like it seemed like so much was happening in a very little amount of time, and the book seemed really long. But other than that, it was a really good book, and this one is by Ginger Scott. I just realized I haven't been saying the authors for some of these, but this one's by Ginger Scott, and I think I started reading some of her other book series just because this first book that I read by her was amazing. And I don't know if I said this, but I rated This Is Falling 5 out of 5. The next book that I absolutely loved from 2024 was Powerless by Lauren Roberts and Reckless by Lauren Roberts. If you think about kind of like the Hunger Games and Divergent, that's what kind of the vibes are in this book, and the female main character is someone you would kind of compare to like Katniss in like the lower sectors or lower more poor parts of the kingdom, or whatever you want to call it, and then the guy is part of the like leaders and like the better part of society, and he's on track to become like the enforcer, which basically just like offs everyone who they believe aren't worthy. And there's some like magic part of it too, so I guess it's kind of fantasy dystopian. Anyway, I'll let you read that to kind of decide. My descriptions are not the best because I have a very short memory, but All I know is this book was amazing, and the second book was also really good. So 100% recommend. The next book, and I think maybe the final book from Mia Sheridan that I read that I absolutely loved, was called Stinger. This book I rated a 4 out of 5 as well, before I forget. And kind of like the plot is about these two different main characters on track for two different lives, and they happen to meet at a convention center that has both of their careers having like talks and stuff, and they end up getting together, and then they can't stop thinking about each other later on, and they end up reuniting and being together. So without giving too much away, it's really good. Again, like, she has all of her books, she has really good plots besides just the romance part of it, and she adds like character development. She, like, the plot is really good, and you know, the characters run into obstacles, and you kind of want to, there's anticipation and engagement, emotional attachment, involvement from the reader. I don't know, that's just me personally, and I just really like that style of writing, and Mia Sheridan does it best, I think, so I'd recommend that book. So there are two series that are written by the same author. They're different series, obviously. One is called the VIP series by Kristen Callahan, and the first book is called The Idol. It follows rock stars, musicians, kind of like the journey of them being famous, and each of individual band members' kind of personal issues, and you know, throughout the story they find love, pretty much. But her other series, the first book is called The Hot Shot, I'm pretty sure, and I read that series. It wasn't as good as the VIP series, because the other one was like more sports oriented. It was still good, but I would say, like, comparing to The Idol and the VIP series was a little bit better. We're finally wrapping up the end of my favorite books from 2024, and it's just, there were so many books in 2024. I wish I could go through all of them, but some of them, after reading 159, like, they all kind of blur together. But these last 4 books are fresh and recent and just really good. So the first one is Butcher and Blackbird by Brynne Weaver, and this one I rated a 4 out of 5, and is part of a duology, which actually a trilogy. The third one's supposed to be coming out soon. This one is kind of like, I don't know, it wasn't what I was expecting. It was really good. It's still a romance, but it wasn't what I was expecting, and it kind of had me shocked when I started it, but it was so good. It had me hooked the entire time. It's about these two, like, serial killers who kind of compete with each other and end up falling in love. So it was just kind of like weird to think about, but it happened. The second book to the series is Leather and Lark, and it follows all their main characters from the first book. This one I rated a 3 out of 5. It wasn't as good as the first one. It's kind of hard to live up to the first book of any series, in my opinion, but it's still really good. Again, without spoiling too much, it still involves like serial killing in a way, but also kind of how, you know, the main characters deal with their emotions, and they're also trying to solve kind of like a mystery and trying to keep, you know, stay alive and keep from, and also trying to hunt down like a serial killer. There's too much that I can't say that without spoiling. So that's the second book. So I'm excited for the third book. I don't know when it comes out, but I'm excited. So the last 2 books of 2024 that I read that I absolutely loved were the Windy City series, which more specifically the first 2 books. The last few books I finished in 2025, but the first one, Mile High, I rated a 4 out of 5 by Liz Tomford, and it's a the first one's a hockey romance book, and then it follows like a few different sports afterwards in the other books, so it's kind of just a sports romance books in general, and it was really good. It's really good. Again, I think some of these books have good character development and plots and storylines, and some other are just kind of like which I feel like are the ones that I didn't include in my favorite books of 2024, but this one was one that was a good one. The second book of the Windy City series, so the second one after Mile High, was the last book I read of 2024, and this one is called The Right Move, also by Liz Tomford, of course, and I also rated it a 4 out of 5, and it was just really good. It followed a different sport this time, and another main character from the first book, and kind of a different trope, of course, but it was still really good, and it was awesome. And I loved that my 2024 to 2025 books kind of were in a series, so I didn't have to like start fresh or try to pick up a new book in 2025. I just continued along with the series, and I really liked that series. So that brings us to the end of my favorite books of 2024. If you want to check out any of my other books that I've read in 2024, feel free to go to my Goodreads. It's in the link below in the caption somewhere down there. So you can totally check those out and see also what's on my TBR for 2025. I forget what I set my goal at for 2025, maybe 65 or 70 books. So we'll see. Thank you guys so much for watching and staying to the end of this video. I know I probably was rambling a lot, but I'm so excited to start this YouTube journey, and I hope you guys follow along. And yeah, be sure to follow all of my social links, and I'll be here because if TikTok ends up going away in 90 days, like for good, I'm gonna be sad and hopefully find comfort in YouTube again. So yeah, bye.